We want to turn now to Campaign 22. Our Robert Costa is on the campaign trail in Atlanta this morning. And the editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report, Amy Walter, good friend of Face the Nation, is also here with us. Good morning to both of you. Amy, I want to start with you and something that the White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, said this week about the current state of the presidency and the Democratic Party. Take a listen.
We now have a presidency where the president has delivered the largest economic recovery plan since Roosevelt, the largest infrastructure plan since Eisenhower, the most judges confirmed since Kennedy, the second largest health care bill since Johnson, and the largest climate change bill in history.
And according to Politico, he went on to say, quote, the first time we've done gun control since President Clinton was here, the first time ever an African-American woman's been put on the Supreme Court. I think it's a record to take to the American people, he says. Are Democrats right now sitting in a pretty good position because of the issues and the environment, or does it have something to do with the candidates that they're running in these key races across the country?
So Democrats are clearly in a much better place they were than when we were talking about things in August of last year, right? So certainly beyond just the accomplishments for the White House, we also have lower gas prices. And so we're getting a little bit of relief, at least when it comes to cost of living issues, which is going to be important for the midterms. To me, the big change as well has been that the focus, instead of being on problems that were happening, whether it was Democrats unable to get big pieces of legislation done, or on the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which obviously was chaotic, or on the fact that inflation was biting a lot of folks. Instead, what is the focus been on? It's been on January 6th. It's been on what's happening at Mar-a-Lago. It's been on competitive Republican primaries that have talked a lot about Donald Trump and election denial. And so the camera, so to speak, the media focus has been on, and on abortion as well, all the things that are not great for Republicans. Now let's translate that into the campaign to come. Republicans say, that's okay. We had difficult primaries. The focus has not been on the issues we want to talk about. It's been on things Democrats want to talk about. We're going to refocus back onto inflation, the economy, and Biden. Those things will help us win. But pivoting to those issues as candidates who have taken position, are candidates who've taken positions on election denial, on Donald Trump, on abortion that are outside the mainstream. So Republicans now have to pivot to the center. Democrats are going to do everything they can to make that hard for them to do.
And to that point, Bob, let's listen to something that Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say about the state of Senate races back in April.
It's a perfect storm of problems for the Democrats. And how could you screw this up? It's actually possible. And we've had some experience with that in the past.
And to Amy's point, Bob, they may be having it right now with these candidates that are struggling to get back to the center and talk about other issues of bigger concern. What are you hearing from Republican sources regarding the state of these campaigns and the worry they may have about whether they can land the plane in November?
When I was up at Capitol Hill in recent weeks talking to Republican aides, Republican senators, they kept talking about 2010 and the ghosts of 2010. That was the year there was a Tea Party wave, conservatives on the march in many parts of the country, but Republicans disappointed in the Senate race. You might remember some names like Christine O'Donnell, who failed in her Senate bid in Delaware. Ken Buck failed in his Senate bid in Colorado, though he later got elected to the House. Republicans worry that though they have a pretty good shot, they feel, in the House, the Senate, because of candidates like Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance in Ohio, who are not necessarily catching fire, that could not bode well for the midterms this fall, especially with the Senate.
There's another round of primary contests, Amy, Tuesday night in New York and in Florida that may give us a sense of the scope and the size of the majority Republicans could enjoy in the House going forward. But what else should we be watching for in those contests?
Looking at, actually, there's a special election also taking place in New York. Hudson Valley, this is an open seat Democrats hold. Biden won it by just 2 points. These are the kinds of seats that Republicans are going to need to win if they want to have a big wave, if we're looking at a big wave. And the two issues that we're hearing about, abortion and inflation.
Hudson Valley's in the 518 area code where I'm from, so I call that God's country. By
Very good. Very good.
Bob, real quick, we noticed this past week, former Vice President Mike Pence did something that usually a presidential candidate does. They went to St. Anselm College in New Hampshire. They went to the Iowa State Fair with Chuck Grassley, and I think we have a picture of this. He even sent flowers to Chuck Grassley's wife. What is up with the former president? What would be his path forward? And does he really have a theory of the case to make at this point?
Whether it's former Vice President Mike Pence or Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, there's a galaxy of Republican contenders, possible contenders, who are looking at 2024 and calculating what does it look like if Trump runs? What does it look like if Trump doesn't run? And at this point, no one's entirely sure. They believe the former president, based on their own conversations, and our reporting backs this up, is looking hard at a race, possibly an announcement later this summer, this fall, toward the winter. But if he doesn't get in for some reason, they want to be ready. That's why Pence is in Iowa, in New Hampshire. He wants to have the relationships with people like Grassley, so if the dynamics change in any way, he can jump in and have a foundation, having tried to rehabilitate himself with the Trump voter, with his book coming out this fall and some of these visits. But at this point, there's a lot of uncertainty, too. When I talk to top Republicans in this country, they don't know where these investigations are going. I'm heading to Palm Beach this week. You have the affidavit battle down there between the government and the Trump lawyers. Because of that uncertainty over the Trump investigations, so many Republicans are saying we at least need to start laying an informal groundwork for a possible run.
We will see. Robert Costa down in Atlanta, headed to Florida. Thank you. Amy Walter, the Quick Political Report. We thank you, as always. Great to see you. We'll have coverage of the Florida-New York primaries on the CBS News streaming network Tuesday night, and we'll be right back.